Welcome to the 2021 Westfield Council Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Westfield Leader. I'm Lauren Barr, owner and publisher of the Leader, and I will be serving as the moderator for tonight's event. Reporter Fred Rossi will be serving as our timekeeper. As a reminder to the candidates, when you have 30 seconds left to answer, Fred will hold up a yellow card. When your time is up, he will hold up a red card. Tonight's forum will follow the guidelines from the League of Women Voters, sticking to the issues with no personal attacks. We ask tonight's limited audience to remain silent during the forum and to hold any applause until the end of the session. On Tuesday, November 2nd, voters in Westfield will elect ward representatives and the mayor. The mayor's forum will be held separately next week. Tonight, we have the 8 candidates for town council. First ward candidates, Democrat Linda Habgood and Republican Amanda Cuomo. Second ward candidates, Democrat Michael Dardia and Republican Denise Garrett. Third ward candidates, Democrat David Contract and Republican Sean Mullen. And fourth ward candidates, Democrat Don Mackey and Republican James Restivo. Each candidate will deliver a 3-minute opening statement. Questions will then alternate between the 2 candidates of each ward, with the candidate directly answering a question having up to 2 minutes to answer. The candidate rebutting will have 1 minute to reply. At the end of the Q&A, with all 4 wards, each candidate will have up to 3 minutes to deliver a closing statement. Fred will signal candidates with a yellow card when they have 30 seconds, and again with a red card when the time has expired. Order has been determined by a coin flip, so we begin tonight with Linda Habgood.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Habgood, and I am the councilwoman for the Ward 1. I want to thank the leader and Lauren Barr for hosting and moderating tonight's debate, and for all of the participants' interest in our local government process. Over the 21 years that I've lived in Westfield, I have been a leader in many volunteer organizations, but none as important or fulfilling as my service on the council. On the council, I wear many hats. As the chair of the Finance Policy Committee and founder of the Investment Advisory Council, I ensure that your tax dollars are put to good use, not sitting on the sidelines without a plan like in the past. As a voting member of the Planning Board, I work to ensure that our master plan is honored and that all redevelopment is smart and sustainable. As the liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, I have helped with the voluntary designation of 7 significant properties after 2 decades of preserving none. I'm a founder and member of the Westfield Mental Health Council, where we promote our town's commitment to being stigma-free through compassion, acceptance, kindness, and empathy. After I got my MBA from Wharton, I joined the firm that today I co-chair, a leading emerging markets financial advisory firm with 8 offices around the globe, 50 employees, and a $20 billion track record of raising debt and equity from development banks. My educational and professional background helps me to be a better legislator and steward of your tax dollars. Over the past 4 years, I've worked to put our financial house in order. We had a bloated surplus, earning only 0.75% interest. So the first thing I did was ask the banks to do better. At 1.5%, double, we earned an additional $300,000 in 2018 in interest alone. Between the surplus, uncollected receivables, and monies in accounts without a purpose, we had more than $17 million of your money sitting on the sidelines, idle. Tonight, you will hear that we squandered the surplus, but let me set the record straight right up front. The real story is that we put your money to work for you, investing in 47.5 miles of roads and in public works equipment, 24 new pieces of equipment that now allows us to more efficiently plow the roads, maintain our parks, and pick up 420 tons of debris after Ida in less than 2 weeks. All while we have maintained a AAA bond rating and keeping your tax rates almost flat. On average, over the last 4 years, the municipal tax rate has only increased by 1.1%. That's only half of the inflation rate and half of what it was under the previous administration. Tonight, I hope I also have a chance to talk about the other leadership roles I have in town, providing you with real-life examples of working for Westfield, with accountability and transparency in everything I do. Thank you.
Amanda Cuomo.
Good evening, everyone. Before I get started, I just want to take a quick second for everyone to look around and realize that 50% of the candidates up here tonight are women, and that is fantastic. So to all of the girls out there, Get comfortable being uncomfortable and just go for it. With that being said, my name is Amanda Cuomo, and I am running for council in Ward 1. I am Jersey born and raised and have lived in Westfield, or I have lived in Ward 1 for 14 years with my husband, 2 children, and our dog named Winston. My son is currently a freshman at the high school, and my daughter is in 7th grade at Roosevelt. I have spent most of my years here in Westfield volunteering in different capacities. First as a fundraising chair for the Westfield Welcome Club, then as class parent at both the Westfield Y Preschool and Kindergarten and Franklin Elementary. I'm currently sitting on the PTO board at Roosevelt. I've also coached my daughter's sports teams for the past 7 years. I decided to run for office because extreme partisan politics from the national scene have trickled down into Westfield. I believe in the diversity of thought, ideas, and approaches, and those started to feel stifled to me. That is not the type of town I want my children to grow up in, so I decided to try and do something about it. Every profession I have ever been in has been service-oriented, so becoming a public servant is a logical next step. To me, being a successful council person is about having strong leadership skills and being able to build relationships. I am qualified for both, and I am ready to serve all of Westfield, regardless of party affiliation. Thank you.
Mike Dardia.
I would like to first thank the leader for organizing tonight's forum, and of course express my deep appreciation for all of those attending tonight. I'm Mike Dardia, Councilman for Ward 2. My wife and I moved to Westfield the weekend my younger son, Beckett, turned 1. He got his first haircut at a barber on Central Avenue. My older son, Theo, was 3 and loved his new yard with the swing set we'd gotten them. We knew we were here to stay. They started playing sports as soon as they could, and I coached as many of their teams as I could. Theo started playing lacrosse, and Beckett followed him anywhere he'd go. I coached their teams through the entire youth level, and years later, Beckett wound up coaching the 8th grade lacrosse team to a championship win himself. Professionally, I earned a master's in public administration and have worked in the healthcare industry, a background that serves me well on council, as I'm the chairman for our public safety committee, and I'm also the liaison to the Board of Health. I'm currently the VP of Administration for Care Station, a medical practice with multiple locations affiliated with RWJ Barnabas Health. It is more than ever a critical time to work in healthcare as we persevere through this pandemic. I'm proud to have raised my kids in Westfield, and I'm proud of my service to this town. As your Ward 2 Town Councilman, Chair of the Public Safety Committee, we restored essential police department funding, supported the police department state accreditation for the first time in town history, improved pedestrian and vehicle safety at numerous intersections throughout town, and invested in radar signs to deter speeding. And as a member of the Public Works Committee, we improved leaf pickup, expanded hours at the Conservation Center. Answer that, or just... expanded hours at the Conservation Center and modernized the permit process with online payments. As your Ward 2 Town Councilman, it has been my distinct honor to help achieve these accomplishments for all of us in Westfield. Over the past 4 years, neighbors have called or written to me about all manner of things, and I'm proud to have done my best to represent your interests and improve your daily life whenever possible. It is a privilege to be in a position to be there for others. I have been grateful for that opportunity as a coach, as a father, as a member of the healthcare community, and as your councilman for Ward 2. Thank you.
Can I just remind everyone to silence their cell phones before we move on to the next opening statement, which will come from Denise Garrett.
Did a good job there, Mike. Thank you, Lauren and the leader, for hosting tonight. My name is Denise Garrett, and I am a Ward 2 resident where I've proudly lived for the past 16 years. I'm a mother of 3 children. My oldest, Liam, is 14 in the 9th grade, and I have Bridget and Tobin, are twins, 6th graders at Roosevelt. I am ready and eager to collaborate with Westfield's leadership to find fair and balanced solutions that will drive the change needed to ensure Westfield remains one of the most coveted destinations for our current and future families. I am confident that my more than 20 years of experience in compliance and risk management provide me with the tools required to make thoughtful yet timely decisions. My first priority is fiscal responsibility because it sets a strong foundation for other decisions and will help us collectively focus on innovative and creative solutions to the town's current and future challenges that have been amplified over the past 2 years. As we begin to emerge from pandemic restrictions and plan for how we future-proof our community, we have to ensure we don't lose the ability to attract businesses, visitors, and future residents and families as our premier destination. We currently operate with underfunctioning and underutilizing sports and recreation facilities, an abundance of empty storefronts, and our downtown, all while offering tax abatements to developers. We are building faster than we can implement an adequate support plan for basic public services. When my husband and I first moved here 16 years ago, I would have never have imagined I would one day see electronic message boards around town warning residents to lock your cars and hide your things. Traffic violations are not being enforced, and now that we are facing a shortage of crossing guards, the time is now more than ever for drivers to be held accountable for their actions. As your councilwoman, I will commit to reevaluating the DWC's current operating structure and reintroduce the Downtown Task Force to assist with finding ways to improve our businesses and restructuring of dated ordinances. As your councilwoman, I will work to reverse the town's classifications of an area of redevelopment and rehabilitation, taking away the ability to give tax abatements to developers and building owners in the SID area. As your councilwoman, I would also bring a request for proposal as it pertains to the 3 municipal parking lots and the current administration gave to Streetworks in a no-bid, uncontested agreement. And as your councilwoman, I would work to be a champion of traffic enforcement while also working with the school-aged children to learn how to walk and bike safely around town. It is critical to the town's success that the community has a clear understanding of where the mayor and town council have direct impact versus where we meet, influence, and collaborate with businesses and county and state officials to make decisions. We are facing a critical new frontier with private businesses beginning to embrace a more flexible work-from-home culture, which is an exciting opportunity for the town to identify new opportunities to expand on non-tax revenue growth. We have a real opportunity to set ourselves up for success now, as well as shape the Westfield we hope to see in the next 10 to 20 years.
Councilman David Contract.
Hi, good evening. I'm David Contract, and I just want to say first thank you to everybody coming to the Candidates Forum, and a big thank you to Lauren and the Westfield Leader for hosting this. It's a really important part of our process. I'm really excited to run for Ward 3 Councilman so I can bring another 4 years of proactive leadership to help move our town forward. I ran 4 years ago, which seems like more than 4 years ago because of the pandemic, because Westfield was stagnating. We moved here 17 years ago, or nearly 17 years ago, and we were watching our town slide because of hands-off government, and I knew we could do better. Here's just a few examples to remind ourselves of what our town was like. Roads weren't getting paved sufficiently, and when they were, it was oftentimes for the wrong reasons. Streets weren't getting swept because the town street sweepers didn't operate and the town council refused to buy new ones, but they did buy surplus military equipment. Not quite sure that was the right decision. The green team barely functioned and only conducted parks cleanup, wasn't doing anything to address the causes of climate change. There was little communication from the government to residents, so residents didn't know what was happening. When I campaigned, most people didn't know who their councilman was, and they rarely heard from them, and when they reached out, they didn't hear back. Taxes were going way up. Linda talked about it, and so was the surplus ballooning out of control, and spending was going up by 5 times what we delivered over the last 4 years, and we'll talk about that. And worst of all, I talked about that, people didn't know who represented them. We're a representative government. If you don't know who your councilman is or woman, they're not doing a good enough job. So I ran because I knew my 22 years of business and marketing executive experience would help turn Westfield around. And I'm really proud of what we collectively have accomplished in the last 3.5 years, despite almost half of it being in the middle of a pandemic. Some of these changes include, and these are things I'm really proud of, I chair the Public Works Committee. We overhauled the road paving process. It was the #1 complaint that people gave to me when I campaigned. We paved almost half the town, 47 miles of roads, and more importantly, through new ordinances, utilities paid for half of it. That's a huge win-win for taxpayers. Millions of dollars of savings. We bought those 2 new street sweepers because the streets need to get swept, and they're now swept twice a year. I founded, helped lead, and I'm the liaison to the Green Team. We rejuvenated it, and it has made a huge impact in our ability to fight climate change. And because of such an amazing group of volunteers, we won 2 big state awards. As vice chair of the Finance Committee and a member, we talked about, lowering taxes by 44%, reducing spending by 5 times, maintaining a robust surplus, as well as keeping our AAA bond rating. And most importantly, as your Ward 3 councilman, I've kept you informed with facts. I've sent out updates after every council meeting. I've sent out almost 700 emails, including almost every night during the pandemic, as well as countless social media posts. I want to keep driving our town forward, so I look forward to your support in this year's election. Thank you.
Sean Mullen.
Good evening. First, I'd like to start by recognizing my wife, Beth, who's here with me tonight. Beth, thank you for your love and support through this challenging and worthwhile process. I'd also like to thank our son, Patrick, who's a Westfield High School graduate, who's also my campaign manager and not able to be here tonight because he's attending classes at Rutgers. And I'd like to also thank Lauren for moderating tonight's forum. And finally, I'd like to thank Councilman Contract for his service to the town. He knows, and I've learned these last several months, exactly how much goes into a campaign for public office, and all that just to earn $1 a year. I'd like to introduce myself to the voters of the 3rd Ward. I'm a 22-year resident, and like many of you, I moved here to buy my first home, start a life, and raise a family. I've been a member of the American Legion Post here in town for over 2 decades, where I ran their veteran and family recognition programs. I volunteered for over a decade with the Community Food Bank of New Jersey's Franklin School Turkey Drive. I'm also a volunteer with the Westfield Historical Society and a member of the Lector Ministry at St. Helens Roman Catholic Church. I have over 3 decades of public service experience, starting when I enlisted in the Army Reserve at age 19. I went on to earn a commission and served over 27 years, finishing my career as a major and earning several medals for service and merit. During grad school, I worked as an intern for the town administrator in Warren Township, where I worked on disability access, affordable housing, budgeting, and constituent inquiries. I then worked on behalf of the vulnerable populations with the Essex County Family Court. As an FBI special agent, I investigated narcotics cases, violent crime, and fraud. I worked on forensics cases and was a 9/11 responder working at both Ground Zero and the Staten Island landfill. I gave back when I could, teaching forensics at Westfield schools, speaking at career fairs, and the Westfield Police Department's Junior Police Academy. I spent the last few years of my FBI career running a joint task force with the NYPD where we arrested fraudsters and drug dealers while recovering hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college and was inspired to enter public service by the men in my family who served in the military and by my mother, who ran, as a Democrat, for Township Committee. She was the first woman to do so in town history. I'm running for office because, frankly, I'm concerned about Westfield's future. And I'm running on a platform of service, community, and advocacy. Service, as I've already stated, I have an extensive history in public service, and as your next councilman, I'll be more than able to hit the ground running. Community, like many of you, I've served my community as a volunteer with a variety of organizations. It's that sense of community here, neighbors helping neighbors, that makes Westfield such a special place. And advocacy, the most important quality of our council members being able to advocate for your ward neighbors. Sometimes that means standing up in opposition to other members of the governing body. Several years ago, when Republicans held the gavel, I was part of a group of residents in the 3rd Ward who were against the placement of a 24/7 convenience store near a neighborhood with young children. And then it was what it is now. It's about what's doing right for our children in our neighborhood.
Your time is up.
Okay.
John Mackey.
Thank you, Lauren, the Westfield leader, for hosting tonight's debate. Thank you to the audience for participating. And thank you to James, my opponent, for throwing your hat in the ring and offering to serve. I know that that's not an easy decision. I'm Councilwoman Dawn Mackey, and it has been my privilege to serve Ward 4 these past 4 years. Many of you took a chance on me as an unknown in 2017, and hopefully you followed along my accomplishments. Downtown Westfield events like the Dog Days of Summer, gingerbread contests, public art such as the Roig murals, the Art Take Flight butterflies, our new annual Adams Fest, which attracts visitors from more than 80 towns. Those are the loud, colorful things. But I also want to make sure you know about the quieter, important work I do. When I first knocked on doors, there was a consistent theme. Our roads were in disrepair, and the paving process was arbitrary. I set out immediately to change this, advocating for a technical assessment of the roads and removing that burden from the homeowner. I researched and implemented one of the strongest road paving ordinances in the state of New Jersey, protecting our investment and leading to an unprecedented agreement with the utilities, resulting in half of our roads being paved at no additional cost to you. Of the 130-plus ordinances we passed, many were a result of proactively researching aspirational towns and proactively passing them to attract the businesses our community wants. For example, the new craft brewery and a future makerspace. I worked for over a year to come to a compromise on both solar and historic preservation ordinances. I'm proud to be known as a roll-up-my-sleeves, get-it-done type of council person, a fierce advocate for my ward, and very protective of our business community. I'm a fixture in downtown, and both landlords and business owners have me on speed dial. And during an unprecedented pandemic, I answered those calls morning and night. I sourced hard-to-find supplies for them, like hand sanitizer and gloves, and helped create the We Love Local Fund, raising almost $300,000, delivering relief to almost 200 businesses within weeks of the lockdown. Working with committed volunteers along with those business owners, we brainstormed innovative solutions for a tenuous business climate, such as the Welcome Center, delivery service, and a local website meant to inspire local shopping while keeping the community safe from a global health threat. I'm incredibly proud to have been of assistance and partnership with the community that rallied for our businesses. Thank you for putting your trust in me and for working with me. I look forward to the opportunity to continue working with you and for you in the coming years.
Our final opening statement, James Restivo.
Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge my wife, Jennifer, and thank her for all of her love and support throughout this process. It's really been critical. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Lauren Barr and the leader for giving us the opportunity tonight. I want to thank my fellow candidates and for the audience members for taking the time to hear what we have to say. I'm James Restivo, and I'm running for Westfield Town Council for Ward 4. My wife and I moved to Westfield 14 years ago, and we were raising our 2 children here. Westfield is our home and has given us so much. Now I feel like it is my turn to give back to the community and do my part to make it better. I'm running because I want to be a part of the decision-making process that will shape Westfield's future. Some very important decisions will be made over the next few years that will have long-term effects on this town. Decisions about our parks and fields, size and scope of the development in town, and how our tax dollars are used. It's important that we move Westfield forward while maintaining the charm and feel of our town. I also want to bring civility and trust back to our local government. Our community has allowed national issues to create divides between us at the local level, and too often we judge people by their party affiliation. We need to move away from this type of behavior and focus our attention where it belongs, which is on Westfield. And we need to be more transparent in our actions. The residents need to be made aware of what the council is doing and what is planned for the community at all times. As your council member, I will work with the other members to do what is best for our town and our community. And when disagreements arise, I will work through them by showing my fellow members respect, finding common ground solutions that best serve Westfield. I'm committed to being a strong voice for my friends and neighbors in Ward 4. Over the past 4 years, there have been important issues that have affected our ward, most notably the PSE&G project. Residents had no advance notice that they would be extending the telephone poles to run a high-powered line through our neighborhoods and along the routes our kids walk to school. If a worker hadn't knocked on a resident's door to ask them to move their car, no one would have known. The residents had to rally and stand up for themselves against it. It never should have gotten that far. Our elected representatives should have communicated this plan to the residents beforehand, and after hearing the feedback, they should have voiced their opposition to it. Right now, there are more projects being discussed that will directly affect our ward. You will know what is being, with me as your council member, your voices will be heard. You will know what is being planned, and I will speak up either for or against these projects to protect your neighborhoods and improve your quality of life. It's an honor and a privilege to be running for Westfield Town Council. I've spent the last few months knocking on doors and meeting with residents to learn about what is important to them. And I will continue to do so right up until November 2nd. I will work hard to earn your trust and your vote, and if elected, I'll work even harder to prove that I deserved it. I'll always put Westfield first in everything that I do. Thank you.
Thank you all. We will now move on to the question and response part for Ward 1. The first question will go to Amanda Cuomo. You'll have 2 minutes to respond. Linda, you'll have 1 minute to rebut.
Okay.
With the commercial vacancies in downtown and the changes in retail shopping habits, do you think the Special Improvement District tax and the Downtown Westfield Corporation are helping or hurting the downtown? And what is your plan for attracting new businesses?
Thank you, Lauren. That's actually a really good question that you asked about the Special Improvement District tax, because recently, within the past 2 weeks, I was in a meeting with property owners, and they do not feel that that is a fair return on investment. For downtown businesses, as a small business owner, it's upsetting to me to see the 24+ vacancies downtown. Immediately, I would advocate to remove any ordinances restricting certain types of businesses from operating on the ground level. $20,000 was recently spent on another retail survey, and to my knowledge, we have yet to see what the results of that survey are. It is apparent to me after having discussions, like I mentioned earlier, with business owners, property owners, that they are not getting the support that they need, nor do they have they been encouraged to partner with each other to problem solve or overcome challenges. Most recently, we had a meeting this week, actually, with some small business owners in town that was very fruitful. It was so good to just have a roundtable discussion. And there is a possibility that we did get some problems resolved for a small business owner who was looking to move her business into the downtown district. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda, for your comments. I guess what I'd like to say about the Downtown Westfield Corporation and the efforts that we've made downtown is that most people move to say that one of their reasons for moving to Westfield is for the downtown. And it's really a gem that we have spent a lot of time investing in. Over the past 4 years, 50 new businesses have moved into town. And as Dawn mentioned earlier, there are a lot of ordinances that we took under advisement to change so that we could invite new types of business in town that would bring different kinds of people. So we now have things like microbreweries in Lions Roar. We have Bear Burger. We have Warby Parker. I was in town last week, and a gentleman from West Orange said that he was coming in to go specifically to Warby Parker. And when we bring customers like that into town, they go to other places to to spend money and bring more exposure. So I think that sure. Thank you.
It goes quick.
Yeah, it does. Sorry.
It's all right. So the next question goes to you, Linda. Westfield changed its historic preservation laws last year. The new law changed both the process for homeowners who already own historic homes to make changes to those homes and put additional steps in place for those who want to knock down potentially historic homes. Do you think these new regulations are good or bad for the town, and why?
Thank you. It's a good question, and it's actually a question that is often very confusing for people. The efforts that we took in the last few years to revamp the historic preservation ordinance were done so that we would have a legal ordinance, one that would enable us to be a CLA and to be able to be recipients of grants to help promote historic preservation in our town. There's been a lot of effort done on the part of the Historic Preservation Commission to reach out to historic homeowners and to invite them to consider designating their homes voluntarily. And while over the past 20 years before our administration, there were no homes designated, we have had the pleasure of watching 7 new homeowners go through the process of designating their homes. There is no one on this council today who is going to force anyone to designate their home. We put these additional ordinances into place because we heard over and over again from residents of town that they don't like all the tear downs that are happening. That one of the things that they love about Westfield is its historic feel and the culture that comes around being a historically grounded community. Those are the reasons that we put those changes into place, and those are why I think we should continue to support those efforts in the future.
Amanda, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm actually glad I got this question because I have an affinity for old things. My husband and I own a 1917 home ourselves. And recently, within the past month or so, we just received the Devlin Preservation Award for our thoughtful and sensitive addition. I was happy to hear that Linda said no one is going to force a historic homeowner to do what, to have a say in what they're going to do, because I believe in the promotion of architectural integrity and community heritage, but it should 100% be the homeowner's choice. I believe in historic homeowner autonomy, and I believe that through education, encouragement, and empowerment, you can get more people to develop a love and a passion for historic preservation and the old vintage feel that so many of us came to Westfield for. For most of us, our homes are our biggest investment.
Your time
Thank
is
you.
up.
That's okay.
The next question goes to you, Amanda. You can leave the mask off. What can Westfield do to deter crimes like vehicle burglaries and auto thefts?
Okay. This is another good question for me because living in a neighborhood that is a primary target, we live in the Gardens, it's a primary target for car thefts and break-ins, and it's been really scary to live there the past year. I believe in community policing and that all members of the community should become active allies in the effort to enhance the safety and quality of our neighborhoods. I would advocate for building positive relationships between officers and residents through education, encouragement, and empowerment. I attended several of the Q&A sessions with the police chief and mayor and town council, and I have to say, I heard some chuckles over there. It's really scary when your neighbor gets their car stolen in the middle of the night and you see on your own security camera that someone comes down the street, leaves their car, and then checks your door handles, okay? It's very scary, and until you've walked in those shoes, you have no clue. My neighbor right up the street, 12-year-old son, right by the door, the back door of his home, private entrance, was closing up the house for the night, and a potential perpetrator was right there, looking right through the glass. Thank you.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Safety in this town is of utmost importance to all of us. A lot of people believe that crime has actually increased over the last 4 years. Actually, communication has increased. So every single time something happens in this town, in actuality, crime is down 33%. And the worst crimes that we have right now are honestly the result of people leaving their cars unlocked with their key fobs in them. There's an element of self-responsibility that we all have to follow, and even though I completely acknowledge, Amanda, that these are very scary things to have happen, to have anyone in your yard and stealing your property, we all have to be responsible for our own things, and that's how we can help our police to do better, to continue all the efforts they're going through.
And the next question goes to you. Since its foundation, Brightwood Park has been a passive nature sanctuary and has a deep history with Westfield's Black community. Last year, the mountain biking group Jorba proposed the installation of trails in Brightwood Park. Do you think there's room for both nature interests and recreation endeavor on the 30-plus acres?
Okay, thank you very much. So Brightwood Park is a Ward 1 natural gem. When I entered office, it was actually very much a neglected park, filled with invasive species and not very many people who even knew that the park was there. At the end of the Park and Rec's strategy plan that was done by Branstetter Carroll, one of the things that the consultant had recommended is we look into specialized mountain biking paths in the park, not really knowing how the residents would feel about that kind of improvement to the park. I held a meeting last June in the park with a couple of my council members and asked Jorba to come and talk about what that would mean. The reaction to it was actually very poor. I had hundreds of emails afterward and hundreds of conversations with people in the wake of those conversations, and basically took action to determine that we wouldn't make those kinds of improvements to the park. But what has happened is that the Friends of Brightwood Park has sprung out of that attention that I brought to the park. And so there are hundreds of people honoring the people who lived in the park. And we've started historic tours of what happened there and what the life was like of the people that lived in the park. And there are lots of community organizations using the park for events. There are children being taken around for nature events, and there's a lot of effort being taken to push back on the invasive species and maintain the natural forest that is there.
Mandy, you have 1 minute.
Okay. What you can expect from me as your town councilwoman is process and approach. I've had some wonderful conversations and meetings with the Friends of Brightwood Park, and there is no way that I would advocate to create additional trails or modify existing trails for mountain biking for that space specifically. We've enjoyed it. It's awesome to go fish in Brightwood and explore nature. And I think that what's important here is that you hear your council people. You pay attention to verbiage. Like, there's nothing happening yet. There's nothing happening at this time. That doesn't mean it won't happen. I'm committed to always advocating against that, for it to stay a passive nature park.
Okay, we will now move on to the Ward 2 candidates. The first question will go to Denise Garrett. Westfield has entered into its first redevelopment pilot agreement with a commercial developer for the South Avenue Gateway project. With another potential development proposal coming on North Avenue, do you think that pilots are a good or bad way to control development in town? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lauren. So back in March of 2020, Mayor Brindle stated that for reasons that are unclear to me, Westfield has never pursued a redevelopment designation. The answer is a simple one to me. It's because Westfield is not in the business of making sweetheart deals with developers. Declaring several properties within the downtown an area of redevelopment, the current administration, my opponent included, agreed to tax developers on a projected profit. A profit the town is now responsible for auditing annually to ensure compliance. The town also declared the entire SID district an area of rehabilitation, which allows for improvements to be taxed at a discounted rate for 5 years, if approved by the council. A town that derives million-dollar budget plans is now asked to guesstimate a developer's profit so we can project the payments made to the town. This does not seem to be the best way to do business, especially for a town who welcomed Mayor Brindle with a AAA bond rating.
Mike, you have 1 minute.
Okay, so Westfield Crossing is our 5th affordable housing project, but it is the first one where we are requiring a redevelopment agreement in order to maximize the project's value to neighborhood and community. It's a redevelopment agreement that allows the town to assert more control by mandating a higher quality threshold, dictating the allocation of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments beyond what fair share requires, and requiring specific public improvements. The fact of the matter is, this is not the time to debate or politicize whether or not Westfield needs more apartments. That has already been decided by the courts. Instead, let's focus on how these new projects can add the most value by providing needed public improvements to our community to enhance services for all taxpayers.
Thank you. Next question goes to you. Over 20% of every property tax bill in Westfield goes to Union County. Are you satisfied with how we're getting our money's worth back from the county? 2 minutes.
Excellent question. So what I would say to that is that during my time with the town council and as the chair of the Public Safety Committee, I have worked very closely with the county to make improvements on various county roads, to make those roads safer. Those include East Broad, West Broad, and Central Avenue. In fact, I worked very closely early on in my term with the county to make improvements along Central Avenue. And in fact, we created the Central Avenue Pedestrian Task Force. Out of that committee came a grant that allowed us to explore more opportunities throughout town to improve pedestrian and bike lanes throughout town. That grant allowed us to put together a plan that we are ready to execute on. I'm excited about that, and I really do want to thank the county for that opportunity.
Denise, you have 1 minute.
All right, thank you for that, Mike. I would say, I mean, that's excellent, right, with the public safety and combining efforts with the county, but there still could be so much more that we can do. As it pertains to getting the dollars back from the county that we've provided them with taxes, I mean, if you really look at the stats, our town is one of the top 5 towns to pay the county residential tax income, and we really don't see enough of that. So going into that, we would need to partner a little bit more strongly with the freeholders, which I believe they're not called freeholders anymore as of this year. And I appreciate the work that you've been doing, Mike. But as your councilwoman, I would commit to continuing that work and trying to get some of those dollars back into Westfield.
The next question goes to you, Denise. What would you like to see Hudson Bay Company do with the Lord and Taylor property, and how would you influence the outcome of that project?
Oh my God, that's such an awesome question. So my husband, who's in the audience, would like to see that become a sports facility similar to ones that we've seen when we travel with our son who plays hockey. But in all reality, it's what is best for the town. But we have to remember, this is a public, or I should say privately owned business, and we have to work together with them and get the best for their investment. And yes, it would be great to have a sports complex because we would win, right? We would get what we're asking for with fields. We would have an ice rink. We could maybe have more opportunities to bring people to the town to dine and experience Westfield for really what it is, which is excellent. It's an excellent place to go on the weekends. And would also give a place for our children to go, because we all know our children are struggling with trying to find that hangout spot. And now that the weather is getting colder, Mindawaskan Park will probably calm down, but at the end of the day, it would be really great to have a place for our kids to go. Or public, similar to the Count Basie Theater, right? A performing arts center would be excellent too. But at the end of the day, if it ends up having to be housing, we just need to have constructive dialogue with Hudson Bay and work out a solution that is best for the residents of Westfield to ensure that we're doing smart growth without burdening our existing public works facilities.
Thank you for that answer.
1 minute.
Okay. First, kudos to our mayor for developing such a strong relationship with Hudson's Bay and with Streetworks. Anticipating a potentially significant COVID economic impact, particularly on our retailers, our administration, forged ahead with finalizing the master plan, land use and circulation plan over the past year in order to maintain the momentum for our redevelopment efforts, including the Lord and Taylor property. And as a reminder, Streetworks is a nationally renowned planning and development firm whose parent company, Hudson's Bay Company, is the owner of the Lord and Taylor properties. And so with that relationship that we have developed, we are poised to continue to work with Streetworks to not only develop the Lord and Taylor property in a way that's suitable for our town, but also other properties.
Thank you. And the next question goes to you. There has been much discussion of the spending of town surplus monies. Surplus is typically from leftover money held in reserve for uncollected taxes and from sale of town property. How much surplus should the town keep on hand at all times? And if surplus monies are to be spent, how would you spend them?
That's an excellent fiscal responsibility question. And so I would just explain it this way. Comparing our term to the previous administration, average year-end surplus balance was $8.3 million under the previous administration. Ours, $12.6 million. Average municipal tax increase, 2% over the previous. In ours, 1.1%. Average annual increase in town spending, 3.46% in the previous administration. In ours, 0.72%. The point is, we do it right. We understand the importance of managing your tax dollars, our tax dollars. We do that right, and I am really disappointed at this point that Councilwoman Habgood hadn't had the chance to discuss this question.
Or me, I would take it too.
Yes, you too. Yes, you too, David. Yes, you too, David. How could I forget? But the fact of the matter is, in the last 4 years, we have been incredibly responsible with your tax dollars, and we are looking forward to the next 4 years of managing those dollars just as well.
Denise, you're
Okay,
one minute.
thank you, Mike. Let's be real. Building a surplus is something that you can be proud of. And if we had more of a surplus, we wouldn't be discussing the struggles to pay for our fields, right? This administration walked in with, I believe, something like $14.8 million in surplus monies, and now at the end of the year, we'll have $5.6 million. This is something to be proud of, right? You are spending responsibly, and you are saving for the future. And we do have something to use it for. We have rainy day funds with Ida, a storm a year, so we need to be prepared. And I just want to say, we shouldn't be fooled by this administration with the lowest tax increase. We had a 2.85% municipal tax levy increase this year, which is the largest single-year increase in dollars and percent in 9 years.
All right, we'll move on to Ward 3. First question goes to Sean Mullen. Large developments are coming to South Avenue, North Avenue, and Williams Nursery, which will help satisfy the town's current court-mandated affordable housing requirement. But a new round of affordable housing obligations are expected to be released in 2025. What should Westfield's governing body be doing to prepare for that next round?
Thanks for that question, Lauren, and good evening. I didn't welcome the crowd tonight, but thank you all for coming tonight. So affordable housing is something that, I worked on 30 years ago when Cuomo was still in existence. And towns, rather than deal with this whole hullabaloo around, court-mandated settlements, actually built their own housing, and also there were something called regional contribution agreements where they could sell that obligation off. So in looking at the future and what's coming down the pike, what's coming down the pike, I would look at what density we should allow. I mean, clearly the courts are going to have their say on how many units go to a particular location, but we get a say on what the density is going to look like and what the impact on the community is going to look like. The problems that we have on South Avenue are more going to relate to impact on schools, impact on traffic, and parking concerns, which inevitably flow into the surrounding neighborhood. So I think we need to take a proactive approach to, once those numbers come in, once those areas, we look at the overlays of where that affordable housing is going to land, we look to minimize the impact that it's going to have on our classrooms and on our surrounding communities, which typically bear the brunt. Surrounding neighborhoods.
Thank you. David.
Thanks, Sean, for that. Yep, you're welcome. Thanks, Sean, for that answer. I think it's really important we understand why this is happening. I don't think any of us really want it to happen, but the courts have made it happen. So to me, we've already been proactive and actually reached out to some of these developers to manage these projects so they do deliver a lot more for our town and with less impact. So the Westfield Crossing project on South Avenue, on South Avenue is a great example. The town reached out to them. Now we have fewer 3 bedrooms. We have a lot more parking. They're contributing $400,000 into our park improvement fund. They're actually creating a park for Westfield that will be deeded over to us. And most importantly, the town will generate $15.5 million of incremental revenue. So to me, that's how you address both current affordable housing needs and future ones, is you're proactive and you figure out what's in the best interest of the town and you negotiate your way to that. Had we not done this, they could have built a building with far more 3-bedroom apartments, far less parking, and no investment in our parks, and that would have been a real shame. That's how I would advocate it.
Thank you. And the next question goes to you.
Oh, so I don't have to put my mask back on.
Right.
Nice.
We're doing our best here in the COVID compliance age.
No, it's fine. It's actually appropriate. Thank you.
Like all New Jerseyans, Westfield residents pay a lot of property tax. More of Westfield's taxes go to the school and county than the municipality. While neighboring towns offer garbage, bulk pickup, grass and branch pickup, Westfield does not. What ideas do you have to get Westfielders more bang for their municipal buck?
It's a great question, and I guess, you heard what I said to Mike about his question, which is, I'm proud of talking about our fiscal management and contrasting it to the less than stellar fiscal management of the prior 4 years in the prior administration. So let's just look at some of the facts, right? Because we are delivering more services and we're delivering better fiscal management than has happened in the past. Tax increases, 44% lower. Spending reduced by 5 times. Both of these happened during COVID. We've maintained the AAA bond rating and a robust surplus. But more importantly, we've invested in our town. Think about what the DPW's delivered, and I chair the Public Works Committee, so I'm really proud of this. We got street sweepers, so now we have street sweeping. We've paved 47 miles of roads, half of which was for free. We've invested in the first apps. Now you can report potholes or pruning or tree requests or requests to prune trees directly on your phone. So you cut out the middleman, which is your council people, and you go right to the source, which is the DPW. The DPW has planted 51% more trees in the last 4 years than they did in the 4 years prior. The Conservation Center is considered to be one of the best-run conservation centers in the state. We launched 11 new recycling programs and countless other services there, most of which are at no cost to residents. Excuse me. The DPW helped with a grant from Rutgers to plant the town's first rain garden in Tamaqua Park. It's actually 3, but we call it 1. We've improved leaf collection. So now we're actually giving free leaf bags to residents to make leaf collection better. And most importantly, we've improved communication. I was shocked how little communication came from this town government. You never knew when anything was happening. Now you know when plowing's starting and when it's ending. You know when the street sweepers, where they are and where they're going. Same thing with leaf collection. So we're doing a great job with the DPW because we proactively invested in it. So if you want 4 more years of proactive investment, please vote for me as your Ward 3 councilman, and I hope to chair the Public Works Committee for 4 more years.
Sean, 1 minute.
So I think the way we get more for our tax dollars in Westfield is ending tax abatements for people who don't need them. Wealthy downtown landlords, wealthy developers who come into this town, every dollar you give them in tax savings is a dollar more than you and I, the actual taxpayer, have to come up with. I would also look at the town payroll. We currently carry, we spend a lot of money on overtime in this town. We could better address that by filling existing vacancies right away so we don't have to put people on overtime. We also pay our town attorney 50% more than the prior town attorney was paid. We have a $43 an hour public information officer, and as well as other issues that need to be addressed within the budget. And once we tighten that up, I think we'll get more for our tax dollar. Thank you.
Okay, and the next question goes to you, Sean.
There you go.
To turf or not to turf, to light or not to light. What are your solutions to Westfield's ever-growing need for sports playing fields?
Okay, so the fields in Westfield aren't just playing fields. They're community gathering spots. They're where we bond with our neighbors, make new friends, and interact as a community. So playing fields are essential not only to our children, but they're essential to us as citizens and good neighbors of this town. So to turf or not to turf? I attended all the craft meetings, all the Edison Fields meetings in person. I've followed this diligently. I'm proud of my third ward neighbors who organized educated themselves and their neighbors about the impactfulness of that project. They have tremendous sacrifices that they deal with now regarding the existing fields. Their concern around turf is drainage, and anybody who went to those neighborhoods, especially Knollwood Terrace, after Ida, saw the devastation that was there. They've seen how Robinson's Creek has been allowed to deteriorate. So turf is more of a runoff issue for them, and making sure that they're fortified against future storms. Also, there's parking issues, traffic issues, and the lights are not so much illumination. Technology's gotten better in that area, but it's the hours that the field will be used, and the residents have serious concerns about when they'll be able to enjoy quality of life. Everyone knows they live near a school at Edison, but that's not the deal they bargained for. They came there to, have a field that they could run onto when it wasn't being used, maybe chip a few golf balls. I don't recommend that. But throw the Frisbee around. But a turf field, fences usually follow turf, and it denies field access to the local residents. But there's serious concerns that need to be answered before that project moves forward. And I think David shares some of those same concerns.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I mean, I actually agree with you, and I think that's good, right? Which is, we're like-minded.
Make sure you write that in the article.
Yeah, to me,
I don't really need, if you guys are going to be this nice, I don't really need to be here.
to me, we have to make sure whatever fields we invest in work for the entire community. And I'm not certain that the current proposal does, because that's what I hear from Ward 3 residents, probably some of the same ones that Sean's hearing from. And I've heard from tons. And I can count on one hand those who support, and everybody else is against. But what they want to make sure is that we do full exploration of every option before a path is chosen. And that's what I'm advocating for. We should look at grass, right? I've done a lot of research on my own, and this is what I typically do with any issue. I want the facts, and I want to communicate the facts to the residents to help inform their judgment. We have to do a lot more exploration to figure out what the right plan is for Westfield, not just at Edison, but at other locations in town to meet, I think what we all agree on is a field deficit, but we have to do it the right way, and that's what I stand for.
All right, David, the next question goes to you. Do you feel our police department, fire department, and DPW have the adequate resources in terms of both person power and equipment to meet the town's needs? 2 minutes.
Sure. I mean, there's no bigger supporter than this council for our first responders. They've done an incredible job, and I think Tropical Storm Ida is a great example of that, where they heroically rescued people from their cars. The DPW picked up almost 500 tons of debris and carted it away. So the answer to your question is yes. I think, if you look at the stats, the police actually, we've invested the most in their budget and delivered the staffing that they've asked for. Fire department, they just got a new fire engine. They have the staff they've asked for. One of the challenges in growing the fire department is space. We recognize as a council that the current firehouse, which is right downtown, is inadequate for our needs. There cannot be a female firefighter. There's no space for separate female, dormitory and bathroom. So we need to think about, and we're already doing this as we think about redevelopment, where could that firehouse go that could accommodate more firefighters, women and men, as well as equipment. DPW I've already talked about, so I don't need to repeat that. I hope you were listening. But I think the DPW we've really invested in. I would like to see the DPW department add more staff. They touch every resident every day. Roads, trees, paving, etc. And the department is down several headcount from where it used to be 10 years ago. We were planning to invest more in that department in the last 2 years, but COVID put those plans on hold. So if I am reelected, that's absolutely something I will champion, and I will absolutely champion whatever the fire department and police department want, within reason, to deliver the services we all rely on. They've done a great job, and they have a real supporter in me.
Thank you. And Sean, you have 1 minute.
Of course, as a former law enforcement officer, I support all the public safety entities that are in this town. I was at Firehouse Number 2 over the weekend for National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Day, and got a chance to look at the facility over there from the outside. I agree with needing to support our public safety officers, give them everything you need. Government's basic most responsibility is the public safety of its citizens. I'll agree with David again. We're going to break some records tonight, I think, on this one. On the new
But you can only vote for one of us, sorry.
So there's a tremendous need for DPW. They're overworked in this town. We can do better with supporting our Department of Public Works. I think one thing that should be looked at are the taxpayer-funded services that Public Works performs downtown. You and I pay for those services, even though they have a budget exceeding $400,000 a year. So I think we can take some of that money, have DWC do some of their own stuff, and get those DPW crews back in the neighborhoods where they belong. Thanks.
Thank you. We now move to Ward 4. First question goes to James Restivo. Do you support the Edison Fields project as it is currently proposed with lights and turf? And if not, what would you change about it?
So I spend a lot of time at Edison. I have 2 kids, and one is still there, the other one has already gone through. So 6 years I've had children in that school. I spend a lot of time there. I know what the challenges are for that school and that neighborhood. Parking, traffic. You have kids darting across the streets. It is a very congested area. The Edison Fields project wants to take all that and amplify it. They want to bring more cars, more people into that area for an extended period of time. That's not the right thing for that area. The people in that neighborhood are going to suffer, and their quality of life is going to suffer. It doesn't matter that they live near a school. They did not sign up for that kind of a presence in their neighborhood. They're very accepting of everything that happens at that field. The marching band practices until the sun goes down every night. You have on Saturdays from 8 in the morning till 4 or 5 in the afternoon, you have football going on at that field. There's a lot already happening there. Turfing that field and adding lights to it is not going to help our field issues in town. We need to look at other places that can actually handle all of that congestion and traffic. We have 7 acres at Tamaqua Park that Union County has added to their Parks Master Plan. Why are we letting them use that land? If we can take that wooded area, which is overgrown with invasive species, we can maybe put a couple of fields there and look at grass as the option, and leaving a ring of trees around there. You can light it, it'll be insulated from the neighborhoods, noise won't be an issue, and we can have entrances on and off of Lambert's Mill Road, a county road that is intended to handle a lot of traffic. It won't be as cumbersome onto a neighborhood as this Edison's field plan will be, and it will solve one of the biggest issues we are talking about right now in this town, and that is field capacity for our kids.
Dawn, you have 1 minute.
So thank you for that.
Ask.
Thank you for that. James, I'm glad you brought up those 7 acres in Tamaqua, because it was only because Mayor Brindle took a bird's eye view of all of our property and had a study done to see that that area had never even been talked about before. So I think what you're talking about is absolutely a possibility for the future. And I want to be clear, that property has not been given to the county. They were asked to take a look at something because we believe in exploring all of our options. But that will be an area that this council absolutely considers. I want to talk a little bit about process with the Edison Fields. It's important to let a process play out and not rush to a snap decision. That's our job as electeds. I denounce the first plan as too expansive for that neighborhood, and we're mid-process. I think a lot more work has to be done, but I have faith in our community. Just like Brightwood didn't go forward because it wasn't the right thing, I feel the same way with Edison Fields.
Thank you. The next question goes to you. Dawn, next question is you. There's a lot of talk about downtown vacancies, but Westfield storefronts are not limited to the central business district. Is the town doing enough to support all of Westfield's businesses? And if not, how would you improve the business climate in town?
I love this question because I do hear people talk about the vacancies, but I would like to talk about the successes downtown. If you look at the Warby Parker corner, that entire area was vacant for, I think, nearly a decade. We now have Warby Parker, we have Bear Burger, we have Atlantic Health, we've got an apothecary, and we've got Custom Ink. Two stores that are what they call click to brick. They chose Westfield as their anchor stores. I think that speaks very, very well of where this district is going. We have welcomed almost 60 new businesses, and I field a lot of questions from people who want to get into this district. We do have a situation where we've had a tragedy in town, and a lot of those vacancies belong to one family, and I believe that you're going to see them start to turn around right now. They had a lot of hopes for this district. They invested heavily, and they've done beautiful work where they could. Yeah, the district encompasses South Avenue, and that was one of my points of pride. I immediately got to South Avenue. I held a stroll with the business owners. I introduced them to each other. I created a system where they could rely on each other, and when we have events downtown, make sure that those Southside businesses are included. I think that we are working hard with them, and I think that really great things are on the horizon. If you go downtown, the joint is jumping. You can't get a table at night. I think Open Quimby was a great success. You can't get a parking space because all the tables are filled. So I see this as a very positive thing, and I'm very excited about where things are going with the downtown.
James, you have 1 minute.
Thanks, Dawn. So, like Amanda said, we did meet with several business owners and a couple of property owners recently and talked about these issues. I myself, I frequent some of the Southside businesses often, and they do feel like they're kind of on the outs, like they're not a part of it. One thing I've heard from several of them is, we've never met the president of the DWC. He's never come to see us. So they don't feel included. Also, as far as the empty storefronts go, I talked to a business owner who told me that they were looking for a storefront in town. They contacted several people, realtors, landlords. Nobody called them back. They reached out to the DWC. They got no help. But within that meeting, because we had different people in the meeting, they actually found a piece of property from somebody else who was sitting in that room. So if we can facilitate getting these people together and having them have conversations, then we can solve some of these empty storefront issues, and we can also make everybody feel more included in the downtown.
Thank you. And the next question goes to you. Just a month ago, the third storm in 10 years caused major flooding in areas of town. Do you anticipate more flooding like we have experienced in recent years? And if so, what can Westfield do to prevent or lessen a repeat of the disasters we've seen?
So I think Ida really took a lot of people by surprise. We had areas in town that really never flooded before. All of a sudden, they were completely wiped out. And not over a long period of time, it happened very quickly. So that tells us that we have a problem. These storms are coming more and more. They're not getting less. I think we've had 3 storms of the century, just this century alone. So we need to be prepared for that. What we need to do is identify the areas in town that were hit the hardest, and we have to look at what we can do to improve on that. Now, we can't improve the entire, sewer system in town. That would cost billions of dollars. We'd have to rip up the streets. But we do need to make a concerted effort to look at certain areas. One that comes to mind is the Knollwood area. Robinson's Creek, it is in disrepair. If you go and look, you can see the sides are crumbling. The concrete underneath is all destroyed. That was created by the Army Corps of Engineers 50 or 60 years ago. I think what we need to do is look at how can we improve that. And if maybe we engage the Army Corps of Engineers again, maybe we talk to the county. Like you said, we pay a lot of money to the county. Let's look at ways we can possibly use some of that money that we give them through partnering with them. But we do need to look at the most vulnerable parts of our town and look at what we can do. You can't have all of this property loss, cars, homes, furnishings. Yes, you can replace some of those things, but these are their homes. These are where people live. You want them to feel safe, and you want them to feel protected, and we need to do the best we can to do that for them.
Dawn, you have 1 minute.
So I think we can all agree that Ida was an anomaly. 7+ inches of rain in just a few hours, and frankly, there probably wasn't a storm system in place right now that could have handled that. But this council got to action right away and created the Westfield Infrastructure Resiliency Committee, because we have to look at short-term fixes, whether it be expanding the sewer caps that I talked to neighbors about, enhanced cleaning, and also a 20-year plan to address, as you said, James, these storms of the century coming more and more. but it's also important that we keep a council that is committed to a green way approach of building, and I think that the redevelopment is actually going to give us an opportunity to make some major investments in our infrastructure, which is centuries old.
And the next question goes to you, Dawn. Sorry.
No break.
In the aftermath of the pandemic, with so many people continuing to work from home, do we still have a commuter parking problem in town? And if so, how would you address it?
So, right before the pandemic, we were having conversations about how to address the commuter parking. We know that we have residents who hold on to those parking permits for a long time, even if they're not working in the city regularly. The pandemic has certainly lessened the demand for parking, and we're exploring ways to progress with a more innovative, flexible parking situation. I don't think we can make any major decisions right now because corporations are just still inviting people back to work. I know my husband's company is going back in November. Many people are not going back till January and through March. So we have to wait for this to roll out and see. I suspect that maybe we're never going to be a 5-day workforce again, and in that case, we're going to look at flexible parking alternatives. But if you've been in the Southside parking lot, you could see an absolute uptick from where we were 6 months ago when I would count 25 to 30 cars, and I would say the lot right now is about half full. But this is I don't think anybody could have expected a global pandemic, and it is certainly revealing a lot of opportunities for us to do things differently.
James, you have 1 minute.
Like Dawn says, I think it's too early to figure out whether or not the pandemic is going to keep people working from home forever or not. I suspect that we will assume a hybrid model where people will be going in and they won't be going in. But that's not going to solve the parking problem at the lots because I believe there's a 3-year waiting list, I think, for permits somewhere around there. So we do got to make decisions and figure out a way to solve that. We also need those spots for our downtown businesses as well. So if we're filling them up with commuters, then we're losing spots for downtown businesses. I think it's time that we look at, like when Denise was talking about the sports arena at Lord and Taylor, maybe we can figure out a way to work in a parking deck there, something that will help alleviate some of the parking out of those lots, give some people options, and open up some parking spots for the people down to use our downtown and park a little bit closer.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the closing statements. The first closing statement will be given by Amanda Como.
Thank you, Lauren, for the opportunity and for moderating. It's been fun. In closing, freedom is one of my core life values. It comes in many forms, but for the sake of local governance and community leadership, I'm going to focus on the freedom to speak, the freedom to choose, and the freedom to live on your own terms. As your councilwoman, you can expect me to focus on process and approach as they pertain to your freedoms. If you are looking for a public servant that is authentic, approachable, compassionate, empathetic, thoughtful, and an active listener, I am that person. To reiterate, my positions on town issues are as follows. I am for the preservation of Brightwood Park to remain a passive nature park. I am for historic homeowner autonomy. I am for ordinance changes downtown to ease business owner restrictions and promote revitalization. I'm for respectful and responsible athletic field improvements. I'm for smart growth regarding development projects. Residents should receive tax breaks, not developers. I'm 100% for green initiatives if residents are incentivized and not penalized. I'm for streamlining our Department of Public Works so their job roles are well-defined and they can be managed efficiently to prevent deferred maintenance. I'm for building bridges and relationships between property owners, business owners, and community leadership to problem solve and effect positive change downtown. I'm for community policing, so all members of the community have an active role in the effort to enhance the safety and quality of our neighborhoods, focusing on education, encouragement, and empowerment. I believe in people over politics and restoring unity in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Amanda. We can't afford to go backwards. The opportunities we have in Westfield are enormous, and the investment and plans we made in the last 4 years set us up now to take full advantage of these opportunities. After a decade of old-fashioned perspective and neglect that led up to this current administration, we now see an exciting and prosperous future, one with a revitalized downtown, new fields, greener parks, repaving the remaining 50% of the roads, and continued infrastructure investments made according to a fully vetted, multi-year capital plan. As I said in my opening remarks, I built a career in finance and economic development, and I've raised a lot of money on essential infrastructure that creates jobs and strengthens communities like ours around the world. The projects that I work on require innovation, creative solutions, and attention to detail, skills that you've seen me put to work here in Westfield as your councilwoman. Skills that have kept your tax increases at half the rate of inflation. Skills that have right-sized the surplus while keeping our AAA bond rating. And skills that have put your money back to work instead of having them sit on the sidelines. In a second term, my goal is to achieve for Westfield some critical finance and development objectives. Diversifying our revenue streams, adding new ratables, fighting for sustainable growth that honors our past, protects the environment, and moves us forward, and using our tools of redevelopment. Tonight we've heard about tax abatement, and I'd like to just comment on the fact that the tax abatement that we're promoting in Westfield is to invite new investment that will be taxed on a graduated basis going forward. It doesn't eliminate the taxes that were already received from those properties. It's inviting people to add to the value of their properties, and then we get incremental taxes from those investments over time. At the beginning of the evening, I gave some examples of the roles that I play on the council. I sit on close to 10 boards, commissions, and subcommittees, but my most important role on the town council is serving you. Whether you're a voter or a non-voter, a Democrat, an independent, a Republican, a homeowner, or a renter, every person matters. This is evidenced in my re-election campaign and was frankly a hallmark of my first run for office. I knock on every door, I talk to every resident, because this office has never been political for me. My goal is simply to bring people together to advance towards shared goals and to thrive. I will also say that you can take my word on things like not putting mountain biking paths into Brightwood Park. So Amanda, you and I see eye to eye on that. It is a gem. I have listened to my constituents, and we will continue to invest in that park for nature.
And your time has expired.
Okay. I had a few more things to say, but thank you.
Denise, you have 3 minutes.
Wait, one second. I had a microphone issue. Okay, sorry about that. I've lived my past 16 years giving back to the community in measured ways that I managed while working full-time in Manhattan and raising our 3 children. And now I'm ready to give back in a bigger contribution. That is why I'm running. I want to set the right example for my children, and I want to have a seat at the table when we plan the Westfield of tomorrow. I pledge as your councilwoman that I will work to reverse classifications that provide tax abatements to developers and landlords. I will fight for controlled and smart growth. I will partner with the Rec Commission to make our field of dreams a reality for tomorrow while being fiscally responsible and environmentally safe. I will partner with the DWC to bridge the business owners, landlords, and the community, bring them together. We heard numerous examples tonight of how that could be successful. I will partner with the DPW to ensure that they have the training that they need to ensure that we think green in the future. And lastly, I will take every opportunity behind closed doors and publicly to ask the hard questions, because I'm prepared to fight for the people of Westfield and build the community that I moved here to into the future.
Thank you. Guardian, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lauren. 4 years ago, I wrote about how my past shaped my future. I wrote about my late adoption out of the foster care system, about being raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to support us, and how I realized early on that everything I wanted, I had to earn. I wasn't jealous of the other kids, and I wasn't angry about this. It was just an immutable fact, and I took it as a challenge which motivated me to keep up with my peers. I worked hard for my grades, and I worked hard to earn my spot on teams. My first job was folding newspapers at the local Quick Check. I folded them Saturday nights and then walked back the next day at 5 a.m. to start again at 5:30. I was 13. There's a humility that accompanies this kind of background. I know I'm not better than anyone, and I know there is much to be learned by listening. A good, strong community at work or in a neighborhood is simply people who are willing to listen to each other, understand each other, and help each other. It involves people who share common goals, but who understand how to bridge competing interests and points of view. In every job I've had after that, I'm still that 13-year-old kid. I'm still the first guy at my office most mornings. Before I was on the council, I coached lacrosse for my kids after work. I helped deliver for the food pantry. I believe in hard work for its own sake, not only for the result that the work delivers, but just because it gives a sense of pride. I feel like if I've accomplished everything I set out to do, I probably wasn't ambitious enough. That pretty much sums up who I am and why I love being on the town council. I work with the hand that is dealt, and I try to negotiate the best deal I can get under the circumstances, understanding that the outcome will always involve compromise. And I can change my outlook as things play out and different perspectives are presented. I bring this common sense accessibility to my job, and I bring it to the council. I'm a what you see is what you get kind of guy. And I work really hard to bring you the safest, most vibrant, dynamic Westfield I can. I am proud of every single thing I've done to help this town be the kind of place our kids return to, because I want what we all want. We want progress without losing character. We want a vibrant business in a walkable downtown. We want the most return from our tax dollars and transparency about how our monies are invested and spent. We want parks and athletic fields that make sense for all users. We want our home values to rise, and we want commutes that don't crush us. We want everyone to feel valued in this town we call home. You want that, and I want that too. I ask myself every time, does this vote square with my values and my vision? I'm proud to be my neighbor's voice at the table, and I hope to continue to represent the best interests of Ward 2 for 4 more years. Thank you for that opportunity.
Sean Mullen.
We have something special here in Westfield, a quaint feel with modern amenities, quiet neighborhoods, relative safety, tree-lined streets. Friends are made at our kids' games, block parties, and across driveways. You wave to folks downtown while you're out walking the dog, whether you know them or not. You pick up your neighbor's mail and shovel their walk when they're away. You breathe a sigh of relief from crossing those railroad tracks in Clark after a long drive home from the city or when you get off the train. You're home. 4 years ago, Councilman Contract came to my door and spoke with me about the safety and condition of our streets and fixing sidewalks. Although I didn't support him in 2017, once he was elected, I wanted him to succeed because, like many of you, I love this town. So where are we 4 years later? Flashing signs draw our attention to rising crime by telling us to lock our cars and hide our valuables, a downtown on life support, increasingly dangerous roadways, rhetoric and rallies on divisive national issues in our public spaces, pushed by our elected officials. Christmas reimagined as a generic winter holiday. Social media battles. We're being told the only way to save Westfield and fix downtown is to reimagine it by partnering with a corporate giant in a massive no-bid redevelopment deal made behind closed doors to build hundreds of apartments with hundreds of cars, thousands of people, untold numbers of school children, and even more retail space. Instead of fixing our fields, we're looking at massive turf complexes in already burdened neighborhoods, or turning our cherished green spaces over to special interests, or the county, who'll get to decide who plays there. Residents are asked to clean storm drains themselves because the town can't keep up, while our surplus dwindles and our taxes continue to rise. Because of lax enforcement of our traffic laws, our roadways are becoming increasingly dangerous, and those sidewalks still haven't been fixed. Like you, I heard big promises in 2017. 4 years later, most of those promises remain unfulfilled. Third Ward voters have an important decision to make on November 2nd, a decision that's going to determine whether many of them will be able to remain here, thrive here, or have their children be able to live here once they're ready for their home of their own. This attempt at fundamental reimagination of everything that makes Westfield so special has me so concerned that I've come off the sidelines, entered the fray, and used my 3 decades of public sector experience to help get this town back on track. I'm not doing this to raise my public profile or get a photo op with a national figure or local congressman. I'd much rather have my picture taken with you, my neighbors and friends. I won't be an automatic yes vote for the mayor's agenda. I'll work for and advocate for you, and we'll partner with the right people in a thoughtful, equitable, and transparent way to make Westfield work for everyone, not the column, not the party, not the special interests. On November 2nd, I ask my neighbors in the 3rd Ward to vote like your town depends on it. I humbly ask them for their support. Good night and God bless. Thank you very much.
Good contract. 3 minutes.
Thanks again, everybody, for coming tonight and for the Westfield Leader for organizing tonight's forum. I think you've seen tonight the progress we've made over the last 4 years. It's through proactive leadership, ongoing communication, and unbelievable advocacy for Ward 3, as well as for the town as your Ward 3 councilman. So despite what my opponent just said, I actually do think we've fulfilled nearly all of the promises that I made 4 years ago, starting with road paving. I promised you that we would do a better job, and we have. We've tripled road paving. We've overhauled the entire process. I didn't mention it, but do you know that you could file a petition 5 years ago to get your road paved? Who does that? That is not a best practice in the state or in the country. You know, I promised that we would rejuvenate the green team, and we have, right? With 11 new recycling programs, free to residents, 6 EV chargers downtown, no cost to taxpayers, and the list goes on. We reduced taxes by 44%. We cut spending by 5 times, and yet we've delivered more services for you, and we've kept the AAA bond rating, and you know, we still have a robust surplus. Be careful what you hear, because a lot of facts are thrown around that are not true or distorted. And I'm more than happy to share and discuss that with anybody. We've met the needs of seniors for the first time. We didn't talk about it tonight, but Brad Chenaney's here, who's the head of Lifelong Westfield. First time the town has actually done something specifically for 15% of our population. I'm proud to have started it and proud to support it. I'm a huge advocate for Ward 3. We haven't talked about it tonight. Residents come to me with issues, and I jump on it immediately. Rental swimming pools on Carlton Road, businesses disturbing the peace on Washington Street, Edison Fields. Dawn actually was like, Dave, you set up a resident meeting on July 4th. I got the dates screwed up. That's how committed I am. I know it's kind of a little crazy, but I did. And we were there with 25 residents in the bleachers. And she's like, what the hell are you doing? So, and most importantly, I keep you informed, again, with the facts. I want you to form your own educated opinion. You know, I'm not going to distort it, and I'm not going to mislead you like others. I'm going to tell you what it is straight up so you can decide. My emails are lengthy because sometimes it takes a long time to explain an issue. I've sent out a council meeting update after every council meeting, and I've sent out 700 email updates, almost 700, probably will be 700 by the end of the year, so you know what's going on in this town. First time, well, the most communicative and accessible Ward 3 councilman in history. We have a lot more to do. I bring proactive leadership to the table, and if you like that, and you like the results you've seen over the last 4 years, please vote for me so it continues. We don't want to go backwards to hands-off government. We saw how that script plays out over 14 years, and it wasn't pretty. But I think you guys are really happy with what you've seen over the last 4 years, and I hope we have the chance to continue it for the next 4. Thank you.
James Restivo.
Thank you, Lauren, for everything tonight. Serving Westfield as a council member would be an honor. My parents set the example for me early on in my life. Ever since I can remember, they have served their community in various ways. My father is a Naval Academy graduate who served his country as a naval officer, a treasury agent, and as a customs officer. He taught me the value of selfless service. It's not about me, it's about us. My mother has been involved in countless organizations over the many years in my hometown. Junior Women's Club, Bergen County Crime Stoppers, the JCC, those are just to name a few. Now at the age of 74, she's still the president of the Bergen County Historical Society. She dresses up like the farmer's wife on the weekend. She gives tours and tells the history. And right next to her is her farmer husband, my 79-year-old father, who still serves his community as a member of New Jersey's Veterans Affairs Division. With people like these inspiring me, it was never a question of if I would serve Westfield. It was always when and how. Well, the time is now, and how is as your council member. Public service means putting yourself second and the community first. It means listening to your friends and neighbors and hearing what they have to say, sharing with them your ideas. It means being their voice and communicating their needs. It means working for them to improve the community. I'm ready to work for Westfield to make this town the best it can be. Part of that means bridging gaps that have developed between us. For Westfield to move forward, our residents need to respect each other and value each other's opinions. I'll set an example by doing just that. I will represent everyone, not just those who voted for me. I've been and will continue to listen to everyone. I will show each and every person in my ward and my town the same respect, regardless of affiliation. This is how a community strengthens and grows. This is how we close divides. This is how we will erase the lines that have been drawn and divide us. Local government is about getting things done. We cannot just talk about these things. We cannot make plans without any follow-through. We have to show results. I've heard what our residents require of us. We need to spend our money, not just on consultants and reports, but on fields, on parks, on infrastructure, debris cleanup, safer intersections, improving our downtown. I'm ready to act. Thank you for listening to me and my fellow candidates. Now I ask that you think about what we said. Think about the views we presented. Think about that when you fill out your mail-in ballot, visit an early voting site, or show up on November 2nd to vote. Vote for the people who you think will best serve Westfield. Vote for the people you want to be your representatives. Vote for the candidates who share the same vision for Westfield that you do. I hope I've earned your trust. I hope I've earned your confidence in my ability to serve you, and I look forward to working for Westfield, and I thank you for spending your evening with us.
John Mackey.
9 a.m. on 4th of July. I just want to put that out there. 4 years ago, I could not have imagined the many roles and responsibilities that would encompass my first term. There have been the calls that I expected about speeding and stop signs and recycling concerns, and so many more that I could not. More wildlife issues than a city girl could have imagined. A fox with mange, a feral cat, and so many deer concerns, and the lanternflies. There was a global pandemic, frantic calls from business owners, and family members seeking an elusive COVID test or a hospital bed. There was a desperate call from a wife asking for help to find her husband a liver. Humbling and heavy, the responsibility. I don't take it lightly. And perhaps the greatest surprise was all of you. As I canvassed 4 years ago, so many of you said you wanted to help and participate, and you meant it. When this council opened applications for the first time ever, more than 500 of you applied to boards and commissions. And when asked, more than 300 of you each year volunteer for Adams Fest. You cleaned up parks, painted benches, moved pianos around town. You helped turn the town into a Hallmark Christmas movie. And you put on a drive-through Santa Claus event for the children during the pandemic. You offered your time and your talents, and you've shown up time and time again for me and for your community. It has been my honor to serve Ward 4 and the town of Westfield these past years. When things get tough, I am right there with you, meeting, listening, leading, and when necessary, fighting. From the 69 KV polls, I was the first council member to meet with PSE&G, to the boarding house on Radley Road, to the subdivision on New England Drive, and now the Edison Fields project. You can count on me to take a measured, researched approach, always ultimately advocating for what's in the best interest of Ward 4. I ask for your vote on November 2nd so that together we can keep moving Westfield forward, creating the community we want to be. Thank you.
On behalf of the Westfield Leader, I would like to thank TV 36 for their assistance with broadcasting and live streaming tonight's event, along with all of the candidates for their time and their participation. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 2nd. Early voting has already begun, and mail-in ballots can be requested from the Union County Clerk's office. You can call them at 908-527-4787 or visit unioncountyvotes.com. Thank you all, and good night.